It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Howdy, ho, welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? Thank you for joining us. As always, Tommy C. is here today. Tommy is a musician who has a band called the Black Widow Grease Band, and Tommy has been around for a good number of years. He has performed live on stage with legendary people like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, The Temptations, Four Tops, just to name a few. He has a new single out, and we'll be hearing that as well as talking with Tommy. After Tommy, we've got Tanya Root. And Tanya is an author from Tampa, Florida. She's got a very heartbreaking story about her little boy, but it does have a happy ending. She will tell you all about that story and about her book. Her book is called Gage, My Beautiful Boy, and it's very touching. I must admit, I got a little teary listening to the story. Just an announcement, the Douglas Coleman Show is now in its 5th year, and we're very happy with the show. We've got a lot of shows in the archive. We are going to be taking a bit of a break, though. I've got some things I got to take care of. You know how life is. And won't be able to do the show. So we're going to kind of wind it down in February. We're not going to be doing any more interviews that we haven't scheduled. I should say we're not going to be scheduling any more interviews. And we'll probably be off for at least a month or so. But I will update people as time goes by. But it shouldn't be more than 2 months. But I would guess maybe a month, 6 weeks, something like that. And then we will start doing interviews again and start producing new shows. Everybody needs a break now and then, so we will be taking ours. I do want to thank everybody who has supported the show over the years. Thank you very much. It's been much appreciated. Had a lot of great guests. While we're on break, please check out the archives. We've got 100 plus, I haven't even counted, well over 100 shows. Maybe closer to 200. In the archives on Spreaker and YouTube. Actually, YouTube is probably the best because Spreaker, we have limited space, so we start deleting them once we get full, but everything is on YouTube. So check them out. And with that, here's Tommy C.
Hi, this is Tommy C. You are listening to the Douglas Coleman Show, and he's my man. And right now you're going to hear my new record. It's called Believe What You Say. Check it out.
To know when you're rocking with me, you don't rock too slow. I move on in, get toe to toe. Rock till we just can't rock no more. I believe, to believe, I believe, yeah, believe, pretty baby. Believe you're going steady with nobody else but me. I'll play that guitar. hypnotized. Chills run all up and down my spine, telling everybody that you're mine, all mine. I believe, to believe, can't believe, oh believe, pretty baby, believe you're going steady with nobody else but me. All right, let's do this one more time. I believe, to believe, can't believe, oh believe, pretty baby, believe you're going steady with nobody else but me.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Tommy C. Hey, Tommy, how are you?
Hey, Douglas, how you doing, man? I am out in sunny California, living the dream out here, and I see that 702 area code you called in from, so you must be in Vegas.
Yes, we are. Where in California are you?
I'm located in Santa Clarita. I was a Detroit boy for a number of years, more numbers than I care to tell you. That way you'll know my age. But I was in Detroit all my life, and just recently relocated out here to Santa Clarita, California, where I've started my new band, and it's very exciting. I got a son and a daughter-in-law and a beautiful young grandbaby that live out here, so we are having a good time.
Do you miss the winter?
I do not miss the winter at all. Not at all. No, I love it. Every day you wake up, and the sun is shining, and I'm able to rehearse my band, and we just did our first show last Friday, by the way, at the Canyon Club in Valencia, California, and we opened for the group Ambrosia, who had a number of hits, and that was fun. And we're getting a lot of dates on the books, and I'm happy to be doing this.
Ambrosia, I've heard of them. They were were they 80s kind of band? Yeah, I seem to remember.
They were kind of, maybe I believe late 70s, 80s. Yeah, they had a number of hits. Yeah, they're still out there doing it, like all the guys that I work with. I mean, I'm not sure if you know or not, but I've worked with a lot of guys. I spent 9 years as musical director and tour manager for Chubby Checker, and I've worked with a lot of the originals. I call them the originators of rock and roll, such as Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, all of these kind of guys. I kind of spend my life working with most of those guys, and that's where I learned a lot of my craft and a lot of the honing of my skills. And I still try to maintain that attitude today, which a lot of guys in the music business, they don't have that professional attitude anymore. So I try to really reach out and give that to the people.
Well, I hear you. I mean, there's a lot of musicians out there now that I don't even classify as musicians, because it's all so much done with computers and pads and sound bites. And I mean, guys who can get up and actually play an instrument and sing at the same time is
we don't do none of that. There's nothing on our stage like that. In fact, I have never been in a recording studio and done a click track ever. And I understand you're a musician, Douglas, is that right?
Yes, yeah. But I'm old school like you, so it's nice to talk to somebody who is from the same era, definitely. I got to ask you about Jerry Lee Lewis. He's still around, isn't he?
Well, yes. The answer is yes. He's still around, and he did a record a few years ago called "The Last Man Standing," and that's really it. I mean, he's died more times than Felix the Cat, I think. So no, he's still out there doing these. I mean, even when he plays now, he limps out on a cane and he's hunched over and all of that. But when his fingers hit the keys, it's magic. And that's what a lot of these guys that I work with all these years, that's what it is. When you see a Jerry Lee Lewis and he sits down at the piano. One time, a few years ago, I went with Chubby Checker, who I was working with at the time, and we went to Fats Domino's house, in New Orleans. And he was very old, had some dementia going on, couldn't remember. He sat down at the piano and went into Blueberry Hill. And I'm just telling you, wow, the chills just ran down my spine. It sounded so perfect. So, I always say it's not always that you play well. It's just kind of, that little extra special, whatever it is, that you can put it over and people really feel it in their heart and in their emotions. And that's really what some of the greats, that's how they do it. And I I try to be like that. You know, I'm nowhere near like that, but that's what I try to do in my performances is give it my all and try to transfer that emotion to the audience.
Well, I had the privilege of meeting B.B. King many years ago, and he was, you know, getting on at that point, and he was having health problems. I think diabetes was one big problem he was having. When he got out on stage, man, he was like Rocky. I mean, he just played unbelievably. But then when you saw him off stage, you know, he looked very fragile. But as soon as he got into the groove and the music, man, he was gone. It was really beautiful.
It is so true of most great entertainers. You know, they're sitting there slumped over. It's kind of like, I don't know how far you go back, but Jim Brown, the running back for the Cleveland Browns, they used to say that about him. He'd be like limping back to the huddle, and then all of a sudden the play would hit, and he'd run for 37 yards. So yeah, there's a lot of that, and you know, it's just you get that feeling. You know, certain of us get that feeling. You go on stage, and suddenly, you know, your body temperature, your electricity just goes up, and that's what people feel. So yeah, you're exactly right what you're saying. And I met B.B. King one time also myself, and what a legend.
Yeah, and
he had
just
a lot of children also, by the way.
Just a nice man. I mean, just as sweet and unassuming. You know, there was no pretension to him at all. He just was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And you know, just like anybody you'd meet. And it was really incredible. I remember that.
No, I hear you. And mostly I'm sorry to interrupt you. Mostly all those guys are like that. You know, from all the guys that I work with, Little Richard, sweetheart. You know, Chuck Berry, for all the stuff that's been said about him, I never, ever, ever had an issue. He just wanted to do his job and do it right, and on to the next one. And that's, you know, I respect that about these guys. You know, so you know, and that's what I try to do. I've formed a new band out here called Tommy C and the Black Widow of Grease Band. It's kind of a retro back to that time, and we've just released a new CD. It's got 9 tunes on it. It's tunes that I love. And we've got a brand new single released right now called Believe What I Say, which is an old Rick Nelson tune written by Dorsey and Johnny Burnett.
Oh,
and we're starting to do shows. We got 14 shows on the books, did our first one. And, you know, we're ready to rock and roll. And next year we're going to be recording some of my own music that I'm currently writing. So it's exciting. It's like a new life for me out there.
You know, I'm looking at the picture now of your band. Do you know, I'm sure somebody has said this to you, but you look like Joe Pesci in this picture.
Yeah, you want to hear something funny? Somebody said that to me like 20 minutes ago, just before I got on the phone with you. So I've never taken that as a compliment, but I don't know.
Well, it's not meant as an insult.
However, you're a short version of him. So yeah, I hear that once in a while, and I was in the city of Newhall, California, having a coffee just before this interview, and he said the exact same thing you just said. So maybe I'm his brother, you know?
Well, it could be, but I mean, I'm looking at this picture, but I mean, it's also the way you've got your hair slicked back and the sort of 50s style, and you know, it just reminds me of Pesci in Goodfellas, just that particular character that he did. So, you know?
Yeah. No, that's funny. Yeah, apparently it must be true, because many, many, many people say that to me. So, you know, anyhow, so I'll take that. I'll take that as a good word.
Oh yeah. It definitely was not meant as an insult. I mean, I love Joe Pesci.
Right,
I think he's a great actor.
So let me ask you, Douglas, what do you play?
I play piano and a little bit of guitar, rhythm guitar. I don't play lead, but
you still do gigs?
Not anymore. No, I write in the studio, and I haven't performed in a long time. I've turned into a studio musician. I had this weird sort of thing where I was doing it full time when I was 18, 19, and then things happened in life, or life happened, and I took a 20-year break and went in the corporate world and got a real job and did all that stuff, and then came back to it. And when I came back to it, the whole industry had been turned upside down, because by then the internet had come on, streaming was there. You know what I'm talking about. When I was doing it,
exactly.
Yeah, when I was doing it for real, it was still, you got out in the clubs, and I was in New York City, got out in the clubs, played, tried to make a demo tape, cassette, send it around in a brown envelope to the record labels. And, if you got lucky, they'd give you an audition. So, we were doing all right, but then the band broke up. We had different things happen with the members. And then I went on a different road. And when I decided to come back to it, it was like a whole new thing. Now it was all on the internet. You did all your stuff at home and you'd put it out, and you got to get your Facebook, and you get on YouTube, and I was like, God. So that's what I've been doing.
Well, hey, I respect people that do music, even if you do it part-time. It doesn't have to be your career, so to say, because let's face it, we all have to pay the rent one way or the other.
Right.
So, and there's there's a lot of ways to do that. You chose to go a little different route here, and I respect that as far as that goes. But hopefully you never lose that passion for the music, because that's really what it's all about. I mean, we really don't do it for the money. We want to be, what did Chuck Berry tell me once? He said he wants to play from desire, but be paid for the hire. So I always thought that was a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. What about you? Now, you've been doing this your whole life, full time. You never had a real job, as it were.
Well, they're all real jobs as far as that goes. I've done some things. I mean, even some other things in the music business, so to speak. I've done some booking and some other things. So it's and a lot of guys in the music business. I mean, look at everybody. They've got products. They've got this. I mean, Chubby Checker, man, I work for. He's in the food business. So we all do things, but music's always been the major force of my life. And so now I've tried to start kind of my own thing again and do it that way rather than play for other people, which I still love to do, by the way. So, I'm from Detroit, like I said, and my son lives out here in Santa Clarita, California with his wife, and I'm now a new grandfather to a 2-year-old granddaughter called June Grace, and it's fantastic being a grandfather. So we decided to kind of make the move out here, and we're kind of relocating as we speak. In the meantime, my son, who happens to be the drummer currently for Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath, kind of helped me get this started out here. So he kind of helped me put this LA band together, got it all together. We recorded some of these songs and put it out there, and now we're getting these shows, and we got a tour bus and all of that stuff. We're doing it all at once. So and I talk about my son a lot, and my daughter, by the way, who's Lacey, and she teaches equestrian horseback riding back in Detroit. So I'll be going back and forth for sure. So I'm very proud of those two kids for sure. And so my son, it's a little side story. He started playing with my group at the time. I had another band way back and he's now 40 years old. He was 11 years old, and we would back up at that time all of these acts, like 5 or 6 acts on a show, such as, let's see, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, Freddy Boom Boom Cannon, not the Rolling Stones. Time Won't Let Me. That guy, I forgot his name. Sonny Teresi, who passed away. Del Shannon, Chuck Berry, all these different guys. Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, Lou Christie, the Crystals, the Shirelles, all these different groups. So this kid at 11 had to, deal with all these egos and different, musical directors. So he really was, he was so into it at an age, and I'm very proud of him because he went on very early to play with Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, then Ted Nugent, then Alice Cooper, then Rob Zombie, then Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath. So he's really the epitome of like a Michael Jordan of music, where every minute, every second is dedicated to his craft. And that's what I try to do with my thing. So hopefully I was a little influential in teaching him some of that. So I bring that up to just let you know about, kind of what our mindset is, right? Our mindset is to go out there and give a great performance with all your heart and all your passion and all your fire every time, whether there's 10 people out there or whether there's 19,000 people out there.
You know, I don't know about you, but I was always much more nervous playing for 10 people than I was for, 5,000 people.
Doesn't matter for me.
Doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter because I've done it so many times, right? You become honed, right? And when you're honed, and I saw firsthand Chubby Checker do this, and I learned a very lot from that man, is that no matter what it was, he was consistent. He went out there and did it every time, and that's a real art in itself. I know exactly what you're saying because it seemed like that could make you nervous. Why? Right? Because it takes you out of your element, no different than like an athlete in a basketball game. It takes you out of the game when somebody does something different defensively. And if you don't see that crowd screaming, you don't have it coming at you. So guess what? You've got to earn it even harder. And that's so that's it. So no, it doesn't. I'm not saying it. I guess it didn't one time, but I've learned throughout the years to just do what you do and give it your all, and the people will respond, even if there's less of them. Hopefully there's not less of them, but sometimes that does happen, for sure.
Let me ask you, since you've been in the business for a long time, and you'll know what I'm talking about, what do you think about the music business now versus what it was in the 70s in terms of all the technology and everybody's DIY? And, which way do you think is better, or which way do you think did you like better, or, make a comparison?
Yeah, well, I think it's, again, I don't claim to be, what am I trying to say, an expert on all the new technology, because I certainly am not. However, I definitely like it better the old way. If you listen to old records from the 30s, from the 40s, from the 50s, jazz, blues, those recordings, they sound impeccable today. Impeccable. And what do they have up there? One microphone, two microphones? However they did it. So no, I think the old way is certainly better. And I try to record that way. And sometimes you get too much muddled in everything. And again, I'm not a recording expert, so I really don't know. But when you get too many mics on everything, like every drum, every this, every that, it tends to just clog up the sound, I believe, a little bit. Because why do these old records to this day hold up and sound so great? In addition to being great songs, the production sounds great. And some of these records you could never make them as good anymore. Whether you go from the rock and roll of the 60s or back to rhythm and blues or back to jazz, you listen to a Louis Armstrong record, well, it's like magic. I mean, the talent and the musicianship was all there, but still just the recordings sound so great. So I would have to say I like the old way better.
You like
and I think a lot of people are actually going back to that way, to analog and tape and all of those kind of things. So
back in those days, I mean, first of all, like you said, it was correct. They just put up a microphone. They recorded live for the most part. 1, 2, 3, right. Go, and there could have been 10 people in the room or 5 people or whatever, but everybody played together all at the same time. And they just basically recorded a performance. There wasn't too much overdubbing until the 60s. And, the Beatles really took that to a new level with all kinds of crazy overdubs that they were doing. I think Les Paul was probably the first one to really start pioneering multi-tracking. But when you listen to, it's funny you mentioned Louis Armstrong, because I just listened to, earlier today, I listened to an album set that he did with Ella Fitzgerald, and
I know it well.
You know that one, right? And I mean, her voice is so unbelievable in that. It is just as clear and clean, and then you put Louis
Dream a Little Dream is on that, and a bunch of other songs.
Yeah. Oh, and
I want to bring this up in the interview if I can. I have a brother that just passed away 2 years ago. Chris Clifton was his stage name. He lived in New Orleans for 53 years. He was literally best friends with Louis Armstrong, and that was his mentor. You might look him up on the internet, Chris Clifton.
Yeah,
but look him up later. But and he passed away, and he played music till 2 weeks before he passed away. So he did what he wanted to do till the end, and I miss him. And also my brother taught me a lot about music way back, because he was, let's see, he was probably 15 years older than I was when I was born. So, he bought me my first instrument and got me started with all that stuff. And I listened to, early classic jazz and blues, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. So I was weaned on all that stuff very early, just like I weaned my son on all this stuff, Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis and Fats Domino and Chubby Checker and Elvis Presley and Bo Diddley and all these guys. I'm leaving out names, but that's what my son was weaned on, and that got him up to, guess what, today, Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath, Rob Zombie, all these guys. So it's really all the same thing. All these great entertainers, they really do the same thing, whether it's Ozzy Osbourne or whether it's Jerry Lee Lewis. They all go out there and they give their all and put on a great show. Some of them had some problems along the way, but don't we all?
Well, it's very true. And thank God that people are still performing live, because it really is the only way to hear them, I think. Because you don't know what they're doing on the records anymore. It's not quite so clear. There's an awful lot of other stuff on the records that kind of muffles out the true music. But if you go live, you really can hear what they can do and what they still can do. Right. And if they can do.
Well, Douglas, the record business as we know it right now is kind of non-existent.
Yeah.
I never sold a lot of records, but these guys that did, they have to rely on touring, because that's the big source of income now. You got to go out there, you got to give it to the fans and sell merchandise and do the tours,
right,
and all of that kind of thing. So people just don't sell records anymore. The streaming. It was so fun. I'm not sure how old you are, but it was so fun as a kid, to go into the record store in Detroit. They had what they called Harmony House, and they had about 10 of these stores. They were big, and you go in there and you get the new single or the new album that just came out, and you look at the back of it, and it was exciting at that time.
Oh, yeah.
People sold a lot of records
that
they don't, unfortunately, they don't do anymore. But something will come along and hopefully change that back. But the live thing is good. A lot of these bands are doing some tremendous numbers out there, and people want to go see them. I just hope they don't make the ticket prices on everybody so high that you can't afford to go, because you want. I heard the other day Billy Joel does an exciting thing. He keeps out, I think he said 20 seats, because he sells out everywhere, right? Madison Square Garden,
sure, yeah.
Night upon night. He leaves 20 seats open, and then people that bought the cheap seats way up high in the nosebleed section, he lets them sit in the front seats instead of some big shooter that's got $1 million that maybe won't pay attention to his music, or maybe is not as much into it. So I think that's kind of a nice thing, don't you?
Oh yeah, that's very classy. Yeah, I don't know about the record sales are pretty dismal these days. People just don't want to buy music anymore. The one thing I am happy about is that vinyl is making a comeback. There was a point there where vinyl records were just about gone. And now they're coming back, because I see artists, and modern day artists, who offer their music on vinyl on their websites. And I thought, that's good. That's good, because it doesn't sound right. To me, it still needs to sound, the sound needs to come through two speakers from a vinyl record. I remember the first time that the Beatles re-released their music on CDs back in the, and I played Sgt. Pepper on the CD, and I said, this sounds awful. This sounds absolutely awful. It sounds sterilized. It sounds tinny. I said, this is, ugh. And I went back to my scratchy old record and played it, and I said, oh yeah, this is much better. It just hit me in the wrong spot.
You're exactly right. You're right on the head with that one. No doubt about it. And my new record we just cut, it's on vinyl. It's also on CD, and the new single, Believe What I Say. I don't know if you got a copy of it there. Maybe you could play a few seconds of it. It's really a hot little tune, and we also put that on vinyl. And in Detroit, you know who the White Stripes are, of course, right? Well, Jack White's got all these record stores and pressing plants for just vinyl, called Third Man Records. So he's been a big factor in the resurgence of vinyl. And I think, I don't know the numbers, but they say now vinyl is, so much percent of product being put out there, maybe 20%, but don't quote me on that number. So that's a good thing. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that for whatever reason, it sounds better that way.
Well, because music is analog. That's the reason, in my opinion, is that music is analog. Real instruments, pianos, guitars, saxophones, singing, it's all analog.
Right.
And when you convert it to digital, it sterilizes it. When it stays on an album,
you gotta wonder why
it's fine. It's
I'm
analog.
sorry to interrupt you again.
That's okay.
How come some of these groups in their day, they had big live albums?
Oh yeah.
They brought a recording truck out there, recorded, and they had hits on them. Bob Seger from my town, Detroit, right? Live Bullet. That's what set them off. Tremendous artist, great artist, great songs. One of my all-time heroes. But he cut Live Bullet live, and maybe it wasn't the greatest recording technique. But guess what? That transfer of that emotion again comes off that needle into the customer's ears.
It sure does.
It's just like a live performance when you think about it, isn't it?
Yes. The one that, while you were talking about that, the one that came to mind to me for a great live album was the Deep Purple live at Budokan. And
sure,
just John Lord on his Hammond organ, and that sound in live was just phenomenal. Absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. And that was like
I agree.
a billion platinum album. I mean, it sold so many, just one of the best-selling live albums of all time.
You're right. Yeah, we're talking the same language, Douglas. That's for sure. Another thing I'd bring up in this interview is that it just seems like maybe I'm wrong. I mean, there's some tremendous talent out there, but it just seemed like band-wise, it seemed like bands were just more, I don't want to say the word professional, but they were really more concerned about their craft. I mean, you look at all these bands that are still huge today, the Aerosmiths, all these guys, Ozzy Osbourne, Aerosmith, Cheap Trick, all these, I can't think of them all right now, but in the day, what did they do? They were garage bands at the beginning, right? And they practiced, and they practiced, and they rehearsed, until they got it right. And they really took pride in their craft. They just didn't pick up a guitar and 6 months later have a record deal, And so I mean, I think from that aspect, some of the music back then, I'll be honest, same thing with jazz. You listen to Louis Armstrong back then, and he was a genius, of course, but nobody can do it like that. It doesn't sound like that anymore.
It definitely doesn't sound like that anymore. Okay, well, Tommy, we really got to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you. I love talking to old school musicians like myself and talking about the good old days, and it was really a treat. Best of luck with everything you're doing. I hope California works out for you.
I'm sure it will. And by the way, it's not old school musician. It's school musician. It's not that old. I'm pretty old. Anyhow. But Douglas, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Appreciate your hospitality. Thank you for having me on. And we talk the same language, so let's keep that music alive. Thanks again.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Since the dawn of man, storytelling has held the power to rewrite history and shape our future. That power has too often been used to manipulate us and prey on our sons and daughters with impunity. Teenagers, lured by the siren's call of Hollywood dreams, are pitted against each other and told, if you won't do it, there's 1,000 more arriving tomorrow who will. The time has come to end this race to the bottom. Secrecy and silence no longer need to be the price for success. Technology, laws, and culture have culminated in a moment of opportunity where disruption is not just possible, but inevitable. Gratwick was established to be a turnkey studio capable of supporting local artists without luring them away. To remain accountable at all times, it will be owned and operated by the audience and the artists. Own a piece of a new, transparent Hollywood where you hold influence over what gets funded, who gets cast, and what charities we support. Visit Gratwick Productions on StartEngine.com today and take ownership over who has the power to entertain you.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you. Bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Hi, this is John Morgan, production supervisor for DJC Productions, and you're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! No doubt about it. I gotta get another hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome to The Douglas Coleman Show, Tanya Root. Hi, Tanya, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, my pleasure. Your story is heartbreaking, to say the least.
It is. It's definitely it's a tragic story, but it definitely ends well.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. Why don't you just tell people what happened and, fill in the details and everything. We've got a few minutes, so you don't have to rush through it. Just give us the long version of the story and what happened.
What happened is my little boy, he was 3.5 years old, and he was getting pulled in a wagon going to the store with my sister. And, a drunk driver hit him. at 55 mile an hour and drug him over 100 yards. And he ended up being on life support for 14 weeks. And the prognosis was that he would never walk, talk, feed himself, know me, nothing. And so, you know, being a mom, that was pretty hard to swallow, but I just told myself it can't go that way. And I strived every day, baby steps, and now Gage is doing things that they can't believe he's doing. He's walking, he's talking, he's going to school, he's learning, he's riding a bicycle, he's doing all these things they said he'd never do. And I think that's what inspired me to write it, you know, to give people hope where there isn't any, you know.
How old is he now?
But he's now 14, and it's taken this long to get him where he's at, but he's totally been rebuilt. Gage has had multiple leg and arm surgeries, limb surgeries. He's had 8 brain surgeries. He's had 2 strokes on account of all this, and he's doing amazing. And I thank God for medical the way it is nowadays, because back in the day he'd have probably been stuck like that, you know. He's just so determined. He don't take no for an answer, and it's got a lot to do with the way he is as a little boy. He just don't give up. He don't. He's my little fighter.
So I assume he was in a coma for some time?
Yeah, yep. He was in a coma on life support 14 weeks. 14
weeks. And then
yes.
What was the day that you remember that he came out? Tell us about that.
Well, when I got him home, he was still being fed with a G-tube, and he was having what they call brain spasms, where all he did was sit there and shake. And he couldn't look at you, he couldn't do anything. And that was for about a year and a half. And then one day I started getting him off all the medicines and stuff. They had him on some pretty rough medicine. And he was always doped up, of course. So I started weaning him off of most of it. And one day he looked at me and a tear came out of his eye and he said, "Mama." And oh my God, I was like, he knows who I am. So here we go. And that was about a year and a half later after the accident. So it was a long time before I knew if he would even come out of it. But he did.
Well, I'm happy to hear that he remembered you, because if he had gone through some amnesia or something, you know, you always hear about people.
Yeah, he had traumatic brain injury, and it was all the way, they call it, to the core of the brain, where, you know, it was the chances of him coming out of it was slim to nothing, is what they told me. But he did.
So how long before he started to be able to walk again?
He was 3.5 when it happened. He didn't walk again until he was like 7. They had his feet were, from the brain spasms, turned into club feet, and all of his tendons were stuck. He couldn't walk normal. Excuse me, if he wanted to. So they had to do all these tendon stretches and reversals and all these. He's got more hardware in his legs than I could ever tell you, but because they can do all that, that's why he's walking. Pretty amazing.
So now, you said he walks, he goes to school. What sort of difficulties does he have at this point?
Now his speech is kind of impaired. You know, it takes a minute for him to get things out and talk, but he's going through speech therapy, and that's coming along well. And his left side's pretty impaired from the strokes that he's had. He's had 2 of them on top of it all. But other than that, you know what? One of his legs are longer than the other, and he's going to have more surgery on account of that. But I think other than that, it's just the left side impairment. Wow. And it's amazing. It's truly amazing story. He's amazing. I'm telling you, I found strength I never knew I had, and and you know, the determination of him and me and my family pushing him to keep going and keep trying, and he's doing it. He's doing it.
Where did he come up with all the strength? I mean, at such a young age, it sounds like.
You know what? I don't know. I think he gets it from my grandma. My grandma was, they ended up amputating both of her legs as she got older, and she never let it get her down, and she never let it stopper, and I think it comes from that. I mean, maybe it's me too. You know, you find strength that you never knew you had when something like this happens. You know, and I guess I feel like, you know, that's your child. You love your child more than life itself, and you're just going to do whatever it takes to make sure that it happens the way it's supposed to and goes the way it's supposed to, and just try not to believe what they told you. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck there if you don't move forward with it yourself. And you settle for that, you know, that's how it's going to end up. So but I didn't want to take that as a final thing, you know. I like, no, I can't accept that. He just goes, and he tells me, Mommy, you know what? It might take someone 10 times where it takes me 100, but I'm going to do this.
Wow.
And that's just how he is. Yeah.
Amazing spirit. The doctors told you that he would never walk again. Is that right?
Yep, never walk. He'd never talk. He'd never feed himself.
Unbelievable.
They thought he would be in that vegetation state the rest of his life. Yeah, so it was pretty rough to swallow that, but I couldn't take that as a final answer. Just couldn't. And for a long time, you know, being a year and a half later, he finally said, Mama. I thought maybe they were right. But once he said Mama, I'm like, okay, here we go. Okay, we've already jumped that hurdle. He knows who I am. We're going to keep moving with this. And he's came this far. He knows who everybody is. He's learning in school like a regular kid. He's behind in school because he couldn't start school when he was supposed to and stuff, but he's getting caught up. He's supposed to be in, I think, 8th grade, and he's at a 5th grade level, so I can't complain there.
No, well, he missed a few years. So he's got to catch up with everybody. What concerns me is that the doctors said that, and did they, I hate to say suggest, but did they consider pulling him off life support, given that dire prognosis?
Yeah, they did, but I wasn't going to have that. I wasn't going to have it. I said, we ain't going to do that.
I mean,
if he's got any chance at all, we're going to do it, and they told me that they've never seen anybody come out of it. In fact, when I took him to the neurosurgeon that he had, like it was a little more than a year and a half, and I said, ask him his name, Dr. Rebay, and he said, what's your name? And he said, Gage. And he said, there is no way. He said, I can't even explain it. He had tears coming out of his eyes. He said, I would have never been able to tell you that he would have knew his own name. I said, he knows who I am. He smiles now. I mean, he couldn't even smile. He didn't know, he didn't know how to do anything because his brain was damaged so bad.
Yeah.
But the bruising and the swelling and everything, it came down, and here he is. And I think that's a story to be told.
Oh, it definitely is a story to be told, and it's a miracle if there is such a thing.
Yes.
What happened to the driver?
Oh, that's another whole story. That's a bad one. I put that in the book too. He hit my baby and he took off. He never stopped. Maybe had he stopped, it wouldn't have been so severe of damages on Gage. I guess he called his wife right after he done it and told her what he'd done. So he wasn't so drunk he didn't know what he did. And being drunk and driving's one thing, but doing something like that and not stopping is another. They ended up catching him a year later. He ran, and they caught him a year later on Gage's birthday. Oh. I got a phone call that they caught him in Warren, Illinois. We live in Florida, and they caught him in Warren, Illinois. They extradited him back down here to Florida, and they were going to give him a year. And I'm like, look, I don't agree with that, because look at my kid. This is a lifetime worth of injuries. And he couldn't even walk or anything yet. He couldn't talk, nothing yet. And the judge said, well, come back tomorrow. He said, I got to think about this. It looks like, something more serious than a year. So we went back and they gave him 2 years. The man did a year and 7 months and got probation and lost his driver's license. That's all that happened.
That's disgusting.
Really?
Yeah, that is disgusting. He should have gone away for 10 years at least for that.
At least, yeah. I know people who got caught with a joint or something and got more time than that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's like, are you serious?
And lifetime ban on driving, and I mean the whole bit. You know, that... That's just...
I think so, too.
Unbelievable. Did you try to sue him after the fact? I mean, I'm just wondering if you filed a civil lawsuit against him.
No, he didn't have anything anyways. What happened is it was in a construction zone, and I guess they shouldn't have been letting anybody walk through there. They waived the maintenance of traffic and pedestrians, and they shouldn't have been letting anybody walk through there anyway. And so I ended up suing the construction companies and stuff. So.
Oh, well, okay. You know.
But, yeah, I mean, that helps with his medical and stuff like that. And that's why he could have all these surgeries. And, you know, thank God for that, I guess. And,
well, somebody needed to, somebody needed to take care of him for that, because it certainly wasn't his fault. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, it does have a happy ending. What does he want to do with the rest of his life once he gets himself? Does he have any other aspirations? He sounds like the kind of kid that could do anything he wants to do.
It'll be the next book. I think it'll be the next book. I think that because Gage likes to help people. He wants to be something that helps people, like they helped him, and that's all he ever says is, I want to help people like they help me. I don't know if it's going to be a veterinarian, if it's going to be just somebody that goes out and inspires people by having talks, or, you know, maybe helping special needs children somehow, or, you know, I don't know, but I think it's going to, Gage is here for a reason. I think it's a big one, is what I always say, and we're going to find out, and I think maybe that'll be the next book, and maybe Gage can join in and write it with me, you know?
Oh, that sounds great. That sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
So, well, the book is called Gage, My Beautiful Boy. The author's name is Tanya Root. Tanya, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this story. This was heartbreaking, but it did have a great happy ending. And
yeah, thank you.
We'll look forward to the second book.
Yes. I think there'll be one, and I think it's going to be a good one. But yeah, it's definitely a tragic story, but it ends beautifully. And, you know, I put in there on how, I got myself through it, how my family got through it, and you know, how Gage is just so determined and driven, and it makes for a good story. It really does.
It certainly does. Well, again, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Tommy C. and Tanya Root. This is Douglas Coleman saying I'll see ya